This morning, picking back up on talking about the love of God, I want to look at the fact that the love of God does not act in a disgraceful manner. This is in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 4 through 5, where it's talking about this. The love is long-suffering, kind. The love is not jealous. The love does not brag, does not puff itself up, and does not act disgracefully. The love of God does not act in an unbecoming way. That's not actually an expression of love. Okay, and this is especially in relation with others. In our relationship with others, the love of God is not going to act in an unbecoming way. When it comes to speaking concerning marriage, as we kind of examine what this acting in an unbecoming way or in a way where it's disgraceful, we see examples of this in relation to marriage, where Paul is talking about this in 1 Corinthians, where he says that if a man thinks that he is acting in an unbecoming way towards his daughter once she becomes of age to marry, then he is within his right to let her marry. There's nothing wrong with that in preserving her. In the same way, if he has determined not to marry, he is in the right in doing so and not acting improperly. 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 36 talks about this. But if any man thinks he is behaving improperly towards his virgin, if she is past the flower of youth, and thus it must be, let him do what he wishes. He does not sin, let them marry. There's not an issue there. Now, of course, we in our culture don't tend to focus as heavily on this as they did in the culture in which Paul was talking about. But he's saying there's no issue there. But if he thought he was acting in a way that was inappropriate and he should allow her to marry, then he should most certainly allow her to actually marry. Within the Old Testament, we also see examples of this, where we see several different places where we have this type of action so that we can understand what it means to act in an unbecoming or disgraceful way. After seeing Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, Shechem strongly desired her and took her as his wife without discussing it with her father, and therefore acted disgracefully towards her. And we see this in Genesis chapter 34, verses 5 through 7, where Jacob heard that he had defiled Dinah, his daughter. Now his sons were in with his livestock in the field, so Jacob held his peace until they came. Then Hamor, the father of Shechem, went out to Jacob to speak with him. And the sons of Jacob came in from the field when they heard it, and the men were grieved and very angry because he had done a disgraceful thing in Israel by lying with Jacob's daughter, a thing which ought not to be done. It was not appropriate for them to be doing this, and especially in the way that he did that. If a man was to treat his new bride disgracefully after consummating the marriage by saying that she was not a virgin, because oftentimes it'd be like, I didn't really want this woman afterwards. That would be the situation. When evidence is put forth that she is in fact a virgin, she was a virgin, he would be liable under the Mosaic law and would not be permitted to divorce her. However, if it was found to be true, she is to be stoned for disgracing her father's house by acting as a harlot within his home. Deuteronomy chapter 22 and verse 20 through 21. But if the thing is true, and the evidence of virginity are not found for the young woman, then they shall bring out the young woman to the door of her father's house, and the men of the city shall stone her to death with stones, because she has done a disgraceful thing in Israel, to play the harlot in her father's house. So you shall put this evil away from you. In the taking of Jericho, one of the Israelites took an item that they were specifically instructed not to take because they were cursed. So they were to sack the city, but they were told not to take certain things. Because of his action, Israel was defeated in the next battle, for he had acted disgracefully towards the covenant of God and therefore brought shame on the whole nation. Now remember, with Israel, they could do this. One who sins could actually impact everybody else because God was seeing them as a nation, not as individuals. Joshua chapter 7, verse 15 says, then it shall be that he who is taken with the accursed thing shall be burned with fire, he and all that he has, because he has transgressed the covenant of the Lord, and because he has done a disgraceful thing in Israel, because he disrespected what God would actually told them to do. Yeah, we see from here, by the way, and this is under the Mosaic law, and we don't really have a heavy focus on this today, but God is very clear of what he thinks of a person who sins. Now, God is reconciling people today. So oftentimes we don't, of course, see this, but don't take lightly of what God is doing today. He is allowing reconciliation. And when that reconciliation stops, he's very clear on what he's going to do to sin. And he was very clear through the Mosaic law. The tribe of Benjamin had become so corrupt in their ways that when the men of Gibeah raped a Levite woman to death, he called upon, this is the Levite, called upon all of Israel, and they nearly destroyed the tribe for their disgraceful actions. This is what it's talking about when it's referring to disgrace. But the man, the master of the house, went out to them and said to them, no, my brethren, I beg you, do not act so wickedly. Seeing this man has come into my house, do not commit this outrage. Look, here is my virgin daughter and the man's concubine. Let me bring them out now. Humble them and do with as you please. But to this man, do not do such a vile thing. Of course, they wanted the man, but they ended up taking his concubine. It was actually horrid what they did. And like I said, Israel rose up against them and nearly completely wiped the tribe out as a result of that, because of this disgraceful thing. We also see an example of an act of disgrace by Nabal, whose name actually means disgrace, which is interesting. In the Hebrew, that's actually how we would translate the word. He acted in a disrespectful way to David when asked to assist with supplies for a feast. Now, even though David had taken care of Nabal's shepherds when they were with them, and he was a very wealthy man, he rejected David's request and actually treated him in a very disrespectful manner. Matter of fact, quite disgraceful in the way that he treated him. It was only because of Nabal's wife, after hearing of his outrageous actions, reached out to David to correct it, that David did not destroy him and his household. Because David's response to his disrespect was he was going to destroy all of them. In 1 Samuel chapter 25 and verse 25, please let not my Lord regard this scoundrel Nabal, for as his name is, so is he. Nabal is his name, and the folly is with him. But I, your maidservant, did not see the young men of my Lord whom you sent. So she's saying, I didn't get to him first, but my husband did, and he's a terrible man, and he lives up to his name. And like I said, literally his name means one who is of disgrace. What a name. A disgraceful person will speak that which is dishonorable, and within his heart he will work perversity and practice profanity. Isaiah chapter 32 and verse 6, for the foolish person will speak foolishness, and his heart will work iniquity to practice ungodliness. A little difficult to actually see it there, because it's actually this disgraceful. A foolish person will speak disgracefully. To utter error against the Lord, to keep the hungry unsatisfied, and he will cause the drink of the thirst to fail. This is acting in a disgraceful way. Acting in a disgraceful way rejects honorable behavior towards others, whether in relationships or in marriage. Rather than doing things in a proper way or showing respect to those who actually deserve it, this type of attitude will act unbecomingly and therefore is not an aspect of love. Therefore, as we express love towards other saints, we will hold out our anger against their unreasonableness as they learn, while making them feel at ease, for we are all part of one body. Yet through love, we will not be jealous towards others, We will not be jealous towards them or brag about our actions while making our love for others appear to be bigger than it really is. So we're not going to go around boasting about how much we love all saints. Love, that's not an expression of love. This type of love will also not be involved in a sexual relationship that's improper, nor show disrespect to others, and will certainly not act in a way that is deceiving or taking what does not belong to it. That's not actually love. It's also not going to present itself in an untrue manner. For love does not act in a disgraceful way towards others. And that means love is also not going to accept the perversity of other people. Because if you're doing that, you're really not loving a person.